Welcome to Leading for Wellness. I'm Liesl Bernard, CEO of Cologne Executive Search and Leading for Wellness events. Each week, we dive into the journeys of visionary wellness entrepreneurs, uncovering their secrets to success. Get ready for insightful conversations that will inspire you to elevate your business and prioritize your well-being. Let's dive in. I'm very excited about our episode today. I have the famous Jeremy Bartos, Ph.D. in the studio. Jeremy is the Chief Science Officer of INW, a conglomerate of co-manufacturing facilities in the nutraceutical space that specialize in dry format, liquid, soft gels, and functional bars. Jeremy has over 18 years of experience in dietary supplements, but he started his career in the pharmaceutical industry. So I'm really excited today to dive into the transitions that you've made to end up where you are today, Jeremy. So welcome, and thank you for your time.
No, thanks for having me, Lisa. I'm really excited about the conversation today.
Well, I'd love to start out, because you have such a unique career path. You started out in the pharmaceutical industry, and then at some point, you decided to pivot into nutraceuticals. Can you share a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess to be clear, I didn't actually make it into the pharmaceutical industry, but that was my path, and I think that's part of my story, and I think what makes it unique, at the end of the day. So, I have a PhD in molecular biology and cancer genetics from Roswell Park Cancer Institute, which is part of the University of Buffalo back in New York. And so, obviously, if you imagine it, going to a cancer institute, I went in for a reason. I was touched by cancer, and I wanted to make a difference in the lives of those that were still around, even if I had lost a loved one that I wasn't able to save at that point. So, very passionate about going into cancer research, as most are. And so, went and got my PhD, and then afterwards, I did a postdoctoral fellowship looking at unique pathways within DNA replication that I thought would be really cool. Again, some cutting edge stuff, back in the day, back in 2005, it was to really try to introduce some new technologies into cancer research. And so found some really great stuff in doing my postdoctoral work when it came to DNA replication. Found some specific molecules that were I thought definitely worth looking at, and got very excited. Of course, with the stars in my eyes, thinking about changing the world, I went and talked to my PI, that's my boss at the time, and going over the work, and his response was, hey, slow down there, young buck. I mean, it's going to take 15 years and probably $500 million for this to get out to the market the way the channels are. And that really, it stopped me in my tracks. I was just like, wait, what? I mean, that's not good enough. Like, in 15 years, the number of people that could be helped by, what I found and what I think we can get out of this, that's not good enough. And so that really kind of started making me think about, what do I really want to do? Do I really want to go into this when that seemed to be the pathway to success for all this hard work? And so I was airing out my frustrations with a friend, and they had mentioned, have you looked into food science? They said a lot of the pathways, the molecular pathways that you're studying, um, there's natural compounds that are going to work in those same pathways. Think about some of the great advances in pharmaceuticals over the years. I mean, aspirin, a great example, salicylic acid coming from white willow bark. All right, there are natural ingredients or natural compounds that are going to work in those same pathways, and there's an easier path to market when it comes down to it. It's still obviously regulated, but you have the same story to tell, and you're able to get things out to market to help people out much quicker. And that really kept with me and really stayed with me. And so I decided to pivot. At that point, I was about done with my first postdoc. I was looking to do a second postdoc. Moved from New York out here to California, and I literally called up the second postdoc PI about 3 weeks before I started and said, you know what, I don't think this is going to be for me. I really want to try something different. And so in doing my research and moving out here, I found out that, Southern California, particularly Orange County, where I was at the time, was a hotbed for the dietary supplement industry. And so I had talked to somebody else, and they had said, hey, look, if you want to learn an industry, the best way to do so is to go in sales. And I was like, all right, I have nothing to lose at this point. I might as well try. So I started looking at both R&D and sales positions uh, in the area in the industry, and started with my first job at Chromadex, which Chromadex at the time was an analytical testing company for botanicals and phytoconstituents, which was a perfect match for me when it came to learning about some of the active ingredients that people are looking for product development when it comes to creating products for this industry.
That's amazing. So, what do you think the differences are between scientists that work in the pharmaceutical space versus scientists that work in nutraceuticals? And what recommendations do you have for graduate students or students going into pharmaceuticals to consider about the nutraceutical space?
Honestly, at the end of the day, I don't think there's a huge difference when it comes down to that educational factor. You know, a lot of my fellow PhDs that are in the nutraceutical industry have degrees in molecular biology and cellular biology and anatomy, physiology, and other things that could be utilized in other industries, such as the pharmaceutical or med devices or things like that. It's just, what fits them. And I think what really resonated with me again was, passion within it. Where do I think I can have the best impact, best bang for my buck when it comes down to the work that I'm putting into this life? And
Mhm.
for me, I found that there was a much more satisfying pathway in the nutraceutical space. And
So, you've had a really interesting career. You've had so many different roles. What has been most rewarding for you?
That's a great question. I think, for me, the product development aspect has definitely been the most rewarding. I think I spent the first several years in the industry doing sales, selling analytical reference standards and third-party testing of raw materials and finished products, similar to what companies like Alchemist and Eurofins and Silicon Muriu do when it comes to the testing. And uh, it allowed me to see exactly, like I said, the things that were the things that people were looking for from a product development perspective. I really liked having my ear to the ground when companies came to me and were looking for, do you have reference standards for this specific botanical? Well, no, I don't, but we can certainly create them. So, by the way, why are you looking at that? Oh, well, and then obviously their passion would take over and they would talk about the things that they were looking at when it came to that botanical and why they want to bring that to market and all the regulatory things that have to go through. So, it was really kind of neat to have that ability to see what was happening. And we actually translated that in my next role at Chromadex into doing that ourselves. My next role outside of sales was as the product development manager at Chromadex to help start up their raw material ingredient division. And so I was able to take exactly the concepts that I was hearing with others and bring that to market utilizing an ingredient that's naturally found in blueberries and other things called pterostilbene. And so pterostilbene, it's a derivative very similar to resveratrol. So think of that, that healthy aspect of things that, the
You
red
get in wine
wine
and chocolate,
polyphenols.
right?
Exactly, exactly. So, looking at this ingredient that seemed to be, making traction from a longevity perspective, and then bringing a similar ingredient to market, and had some really great commercialization success in doing all the work to bring that ingredient to market. And so that development of a raw material to me was just the start of, hey, I like this. I can do the science and then do the clinical studies and do the patent work behind it. Okay, that's fun and that's cool, but that's all a means to the end. And the means to the end is bringing this ingredient to market such that that I can help people, which is why you get into it in the first place, right?
Hmm.
And so I've always found satisfaction. In fact, I've told other people in the industry as well, when people are questioning life choices, I say, look, I understand that, but whenever I'm having a down day, I can go online and I can read consumer consumer reports or consumer
Feedback, yeah.
opinions, feedback, thank you,
Mm.
on products that I have formulated or ingredients that I've brought to market that have had a meaningful impact in their lives and in their overall health. And so to be able to read through 10 or 15 comments on a product and just see how that's impacted an individual, in Wisconsin or in Georgia, or something like that, that is why I still do it. That's why I continue to do it. And so the opportunity to bring ingredients to market or that product development space, there's that extra incentive in there that I'm able to utilize as a gut check to keep me going on a motivation
Yeah,
perspective, even
yeah.
during hard days.
It sounds like you have a really strong why, and that continues to feed you. And, I think everyone knows that you have to have that sense of purpose and fulfillment from that. So I'd love to dial it back a little bit because I think there's a lot of people that listen that may not know what an R&D scientist and a product development scientist does in the nutraceutical space. Do you mind breaking it down a little bit and how those two combine and what the transition is between the two?
No, absolutely. And I hate to go to a 35,000-foot view, but I think it's meaningful for this conversation. When I look at the nutraceutical industry, I think there's three main types of companies that really drive the industry. Those are the brands that obviously are putting out the products and that are presenting their message to consumers. There are the raw materials that go into those products themselves, and obviously the raw materials are really where the science starts. Those are the ones who
Hmm.
have the pulse when it comes to getting the actual clinical substantiation behind the message that's being played. And then in the middle of those is the contract manufacturers. Those are the ones that are understanding the science of the product, and the science is what happens when you're actually taking the product, what happens inside the body. And then honestly, on the outside as well, when it comes to the product itself, how do you make it? What are the ingredients interacting with? How does that happen on the shelf? And so really the contract manufacturer has to work at both what the product is doing outside the body, as well as be able to understand what the product's going to do inside the body to help bridge the gap, if you will, and create that product overall. And in working with all three sectors in the industry, and in all three sectors of the industry, where I'm at in the middle with the contract manufacturing, I found is a really cool place to be, again, where I can help almost act as a matchmaker, if you will, when it comes to finding ingredients that our branded customers are looking for, and matching them together to help create the story that they're looking to tell when it comes to their consumer base.
Yeah, it sounds like it's actually a really creative job, right? Because you've got to combine all the knowledge that you have in science, but then come up with a formulation that's going to work for a specific demographic in the population. And I think I had a conversation with you recently where you say it's kind of like making music, and I'd love you to share that.
No, absolutely. Yeah. One of my favorite analogies for a product, I say, a finished product or a formula is like a rock band, right? That finished product, that formula, it's got components that need to work together in synergy, and they create a unique sound, and they have a unique story that they're looking to tell, right? And at the end of the day, it's up to the brand to determine, what story they want to tell, what story they want to tell, or what sound they want to make, and that's based on their consumer. And so for me, it's always satisfying to be able to talk to the brands to understand, what that message is, what that sound is they want to make. Because at the end of the day, if you think about it, Justin Timberlake and Freddie Mercury, Chris Martin, Bono, these are all amazing storytellers that have unique sounds. They're the rock stars of their bands, if you will. Okay, they're the ones that is driving the message that the consumers are going to that music or going to that formula in the case of ingredient to hear. And so, in understanding what rock star, if you will, or what message, if you will, my brand customer is looking for, that allows me to match them up with that rock star ingredient that will help drive the clinical substantiation behind the claims they want to make, or the unique story when it comes to the product they want to sell. Is it non-GMO? Is it organic? Is there a sustainability aspect from it? Is there a traditional medicinal story behind this ingredient that they believe, will translate well? And so when I get that story for them, I'm able to say, okay, you don't want Freddie Mercury, that's fine. Let's take Justin Timberlake, and with that in mind, we can create and fill around it the rest of that sound, the rest of the
Mm.
ingredients, if you will, that would make that formula unique and that message unique to that brand itself. And so sitting in that middle piece, and that product development piece is I think a really fun place to be. And it's not something that only contract manufacturing does. Obviously, a lot of the brands are going to be going through and doing the same sort of thing on their side when it comes to trying to find that rock star, if you will, to create that band, if you will, that's going to go out there and promote the message that they know their consumer demographic is going to be interested in hearing.
Yeah. I think you've got such a unique background because you've also been in sales and business development. So you understand how important it is to be able to tell the story behind the brand. And I think as nutraceuticals are becoming more prominent in the market, the claims that are being made are super important and the research behind it. Do you want to share more about that?
Yeah, and I think you're right. And for what it's worth, what I found is obviously the research starts with the ingredients themselves. And so in the nutraceutical industry, a lot of the ingredient sellers will run the human clinical studies themselves. So they'll take feedback from, the brands to figure out, what sort of claims they want to come out of it. And then they'll try to run, the human clinical data in order to substantiate those claims. And so by talking with the raw material suppliers, I think that gives, any product developer the ability to go through and really understand the science behind it. And then they can go obviously online and look through the clinical studies themselves and make sure that the science is up to snuff for the claims they want to make. Obviously, when it comes to claims, this is not a regulatory discussion by any sense of imagination, but when it comes to the claims, there's definitely different levels of claims that are going to require different amounts of substantiation. When supports digestive health versus supports, occasional bloating or supports occasional, diarrhea or something like that. There's different levels of substantiation that come along with those claims, and being able to read the clinical studies is going to be important for anyone in product development to understand if their product is truly going to be substantiated at the level that it needs to be. And that honestly comes all the way back around to that pharmaceutical side of things, or that advanced degree side of things, where a lot of time spent in grad school and in pharmaceuticals is writing and reading these clinical studies, understanding what they mean, getting to getting through the tough aspect of that to the actual meat of that, and bringing that back to your team. And I think, what you mentioned in terms of my background from a business development and sales perspective, that really allowed me to help figure out how to read that complex science and then break it down in a meaningful way that's going to that I'm able to translate that message to other departments, if you will, within my own company, or other groups within a brand itself, to help them understand truly what that means. And so obviously not everybody has not everyone has a PhD or even a degree in biology, but if somebody's able to take this and kind of explain it in a way that makes sense to them, that's going to be important for them as they're going through to make up their own story as well. So being able to take the science and translate it in a way that is meaningful to marketing people and to procurement people, as well as the scientists like myself, I think is an important skill that can be honed while you're in grad school. Or while you're in an earlier stage pharmaceutical or nutraceutical job as well. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're in such a dynamic environment right now with social media that, there's people on TikTok that are selling, supplements and other products and making all kinds of claims. How important do you think it's going to become to have real science behind products as the consumer becomes more knowledgeable and want more evidence of efficacy?
Absolutely. I mean, I think excuse me, the need's always been there for that, but the
Mhm.
need to be able to translate it in a meaningful way, I think is becoming all more important. Like you said, um, there's all these social media platforms now. I call them podiums, if you will, where somebody can go up there and preach the gospel of their product, and the more they know. And by know, I mean the more they're right in what they're saying, the more it's going to be meaningful and to those that are listening to them, and when it comes to actually understanding what products might work for them and not. Obviously, the goals of a lot of these products or their spokespeople on social media is to sell the products. But if you go out there sounding like an idiot, don't know what you're talking about, if you have 1 or 2 points of, you can get called out really easily and have no idea how to respond. So the having the ability to educate those people or get them in contact with those ingredient owners and things that have the ability to educate them, I think is very important, such that they're going out there and promoting the correct and proper message, and also giving them the heads up in terms of what they can and cannot say, so that they don't get they don't get a nice nasty gram from the FDA, FTC, NAD, any of those. I think is going to be important as well, especially as we've seen TikTok just explode as an honestly new marketplace, if you
Yeah.
will. It's not just a new podium; it's a marketplace in and of itself to promote wellness products.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with AI, obviously that's changing the way consumers are investigating products and how they're buying products, because that's a whole, a lot of people are using AI now to recommend products to, for their health. How do you think that's going to change, the consumer behavior over the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, I hear more and more about, when friends come and say, I checked this out. I looked at, I asked AI what I should be taking. What do you think about this sort of thing? And honestly, I use AI, as well when it comes to fact checking raw material suppliers, right?
Hmm.
And so I think it's an important tool that can be leaned upon, but it's a tool that also has to be fact checked in and of itself. I find myself several times saying, putting it, asking a question, getting an answer, knowing that answer is not quite right, having to refine the question I ask in order to ensure that I'm getting the answer to the question that I asked. Because I've seen that as well, where I might ask, one question and the answer doesn't exactly answer the question I asked. And so you have to be savvy about that sort of thing and make sure you're asking the right questions. When it comes down to utilizing AI.
Are you using AI for product development yet?
Um, Not yes and no. I'm not saying, hey, hey AI, put together a formula for me for weight management. But what I might do is say, all right, AI, here's 3 ingredients that my customer is interested in based on the clinical data that is out there for these branded ingredients. Can you give me 3 to 5 structure function claims that you think might be okay for the customer to use for these products, and also provide me with the citations that would substantiate these claims? To me, that's an easy and effective way to utilize AI, because it could save me hours in terms of having to go into PubMed or into ResearchGate or into some of these other online platforms to try to find these papers myself.
Hmm.
It gives me good summaries of it, and I can go and fact check them in the actual citations myself without having to waste the time trying to find them in the first place. And so I think in that way, AI has been helpful for me from a product development perspective. I think additionally, when it comes to the supporting ingredients in that rock band, right? The keyboardist and the bassist and the drummer, those other ingredients that are going to be synergistic. Coming up with a list of some other ingredients, vitamins, minerals, botanicals, things like that could work in synergy with, that rock star ingredient that my brand company customer has decided they want to go with. That's helpful as well to give them the opportunity, because there might be, again, ingredients that could resonate with them. Oh, I really like that one because that one's in TCM, or really like that one because of the Ayurvedic nature of it. Those sorts of things that, again, I don't know exactly what they're looking for, but if I can give them options like that, it can help them hone in really quickly as well. And it's a lot easier than saying, here's 50 ingredients, have at it, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people are slightly disillusioned by the, Western medical system, especially since COVID. And they're becoming more open to Chinese medicine, TCM type of products, or Ayurvedic, or even other Eastern, philosophies. Um, Tell me more about how you're incorporating some of those aspects into product formulation, and what do you think the consumer, or how open do you think the consumer is to, those types of traditional traditional Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic? formulations.
No, absolutely. And again, my opinion is, there's an opportunity for pharmaceuticals and nutraceuticals to play together. Now, obviously, there's a full spectrum when it comes to consumers. Some only look at pharmaceuticals, some only look at nutraceuticals. And so everyone's going to have their own opinion when it comes to what works best for them. But I think, again, having the ability to find the mechanism of action, find the actual pathways in the body where these ingredients are working, can help get some people over the hump when it comes to looking at, taking a leap into making a wellness change without going, without going to the next step into something they might not be more comfortable with. And I think probably the best example of that right now is what's going on with GLP-1, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so with all the pharmaceuticals and injectables, soon to be, ingestibles around GLP-1, people have heard great things about it in terms of losing weight, in terms of reducing blood sugar level, but they've also heard horrible things about some of the side effects that could come around it. And so they might be looking for alternatives for GLP-1. And so there's some great natural GLP-1 agonists that are out there with clinical data demonstrating, a clinically significant effect in that range. And it makes for a good stepping stone for somebody if they don't want to jump into pharmaceuticals, or for somebody who doesn't want to lose a bunch of weight, but they want to lose a little bit of weight without significantly affecting their day-to-day lives. Or, you know, they might be on a GLP-1 and they want to have they're looking for things that could help them with some of the unwanted side effects when it comes to some of the digestive issues, some of the nausea, some of the muscle loss that comes along
Mm-hmm.
with the weight loss that's coming out of it. There's the opportunity to blend a pharmaceutical regimen with a nutraceutical regimen to help overall quality of a life for a person. And so to be able to put together products or suggest ingredients that could help, you know, with with helping a brand's consumers get to their wellness goals, I think is out there, and there's an ability to meld the two together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we work with a lot of branded or patented ingredient companies and helping them find talent, et cetera. And what we're seeing is that the intersection between pharmaceuticals and nutraceuticals is becoming bigger and bigger. A lot of these companies are also now working in pharmaceutical space, or pharmaceutical companies are now investing in the nutraceutical space. Um, what do you see, and that even includes, even psychedelics and peptides and so forth. I think there's an intersection of all those different aspects of the industry coming together in a bigger and bigger way.
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, and it's not just pharmaceutical industries, it's large CPG companies as well. When you look at some of the, when you think of some of the large
Nestle, yeah.
CPG companies, yeah, Nestle, Procter and Gamble, Unilever, Clorox until recently, all big players with brands in the dietary supplement and nutraceutical space. Understanding that this is something that they can incorporate into their own brand portfolio that's going to be synergistic with some of the other products they're selling. And so, and the same thing in with the pharmaceutical industry as well, when it comes down to the pharmaceutical industry investing in nutraceutical science. Because again, at the end of the day, a lot of the you see a lot of traction in the pharmaceutical space that have come out of bioactive ingredients from nature. You had mentioned peptides, for example, bioactive
Hmm.
peptides. There's a lot that's being done now in the bioactive peptide space when it comes to longevity, things like that. Um, or sorry, uh, botanicals when it comes to the phytoconstituents. I already mentioned resveratrol. I think that's a great example. There are resveratrol derivatives out there now that are being sold as pharmaceutical drugs. And that started out with taking the naturally derived compound and tweaking it a little bit you know, to better operate in a pathway or to go to a slightly different pathway. And that all started out with research in that natural product side of the industry. And so there's definitely that the blending, if you will, between those. But of course, there's also healthy competition as well, as you know. And
Hmm.
so I think we're seeing that play out in some of the regulatory spaces as well when it comes to how products are being regulated, and where is the line between a pharmaceutical ingredient and a nutraceutical ingredient. The N-acetylcysteine, NAC, for example, or the NMN as well. Even resveratrol and fish oil, honestly, as well, have all gone through regulatory battles between the nutraceutical dietary supplement industry and the pharmaceutical industry as to where they belong and who owns them, or can anyone own them. So that's still going to continue to play, especially as innovation is what's driving that in the first place.
Hmm. Such an exciting time we live in, and it wouldn't be great if your doctor also prescribed, nutraceuticals when you go in for your annual checkup. But let's hope we get there. What do you see are the major trends that's happening in the nutraceutical space over the next few years, and what areas are hot?
Well, I mean, we've mentioned a couple of them already. I think bioactive peptides. I think that's going to be
Hmm.
big for beauty from within, for longevity, honestly, for mood and stress as well. Peptides are being shown to have properties to act as signaling molecules in the body, and so I think you're going to see more research on the bioactive peptides of things as well. From an ingredient perspective, I think from a health and wellness perspective, from a consumer demographic perspective, GLP-1 is not going away. And so the ability to play alongside GLP-1 and to help incorporate supplements and functional foods into that lifestyle, I think is going to be key. And there's, obviously a lot of people are making money on it. It's just a question of the story they're telling and if they're telling it in the right way. So I don't think that's going to go away. I think women's health is one that continues to grow all the way around. It's been shown that women are the ones taking care of their households, and so as they're looking for products, they're going to be looking for first and foremost for themselves as well as for their family too. And so you're seeing vaginal health, you're seeing mood and stress, you're seeing beauty from within, all taking more of a female twist when it comes to the marketing aspects of things. And honestly, that is translating to the clinical side as well. It's looking at, studies are now being done in women demographic only because that's important.
Yeah.
When it comes to making claims, making sure you're matching up the study demographics to the demographics of the consumer you're looking to sell to is vitally important.
Yeah, and
So
it's so great that hormone replacement is now, it's not a taboo anymore. So that's really exciting that those developments are happening for women. How about sleep? Is that still a hot topic?
it is, yes, and I think it's natural sleep, it's non-melatonin sleep. There's been a lot of tarnish, if you will, on melatonin, even as a great ingredient that works well when it comes to the general media, just taking it and and sort of bastardizing some of the negativity that's come out of utilizing that. Well, it's a hormone, and what do we really know, and blah blah blah. And it's been used for decades now safely. So it's just making sure you use it right. But of course, you have to react to the market. And then the question is, all right, what can you do now when it comes to helping with sleep? And I think I'd be remiss to say I think one of the main things that is getting a lot of traction there, as a probiotic expert and fan, is the gut brain axis and
Hmm.
how the microbiome itself, how that is able to affect how you're living your daily life, and honestly how you sleep as well. And so I think there's a messaging play that is different, that consumers quite haven't gotten yet with this sort of thing.
Yeah,
If
I
you're a
agree.
consumer and you're taking Ambien, it's going to knock you out right away. As a pharmaceutical, if you're taking melatonin, it's probably going to knock you out right away as a nutraceutical. But that's going to help you for today. But what about for tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day? Especially if you don't want to keep taking these things. It's
Yeah,
about changing your lifestyle, changing your honestly, literally your body makeup as well, so that you can rely less on these things. And so one of the ways you can do that is by changing your microbiome. And so now there's
yeah,
several products that are coming out now, probiotics and postbiotics, that you're not going to see it overnight. I'm not going to take a probiotic and say, wow, I slept amazing that tonight. That's amazing. No, it's something that, you take a probiotic tonight, maybe with your 5 milligrams of melatonin, and then 2 weeks later, you're down to 3 milligrams of melatonin. And then, a month later, you're down to 1 milligram of melatonin. And then you realize you don't need the melatonin anymore because, you've kind of weaned yourself off of that while changing naturally, the way your body is responding by changing by changing your gut brain axis, sorry, your some of the microbes that are in your gut, they're making different molecular signals, and you don't necessarily need melatonin in your body. Your body's able to make, naturally the melatonin it needs or the serotonin it needs, or go through what's going to be unique and work well for your own body. And so consumers need to understand that it's not an overnight. What I hate to hear is, people saying, you know, you recommended this postbiotic to me and I tried it and for a week and it didn't do anything. And I'm
Mm.
like, of
That
course it
doesn't
didn't
change
do anything.
overnight. Yeah.
It's not going to change
Yeah.
anything overnight. The point is you need to get there, and so it's something you need to take. And I think that's part of the consumer communication piece that can be lost on products. And I think another great example of that's just with joint health. Glucosamine chondroitin products are fantastic and they're amazing, and people take them and for months or years. And then they stop taking them because they don't think they work, and then they realize how much they have worked. I always say when it comes to those sorts of products, you don't realize how much they worked until you stop taking them.
Yeah.
And so it's understand that becomes um, part of your general daily regimen and wellness, and that's going to help change your habits over time. And so the microbiome, going back to one of your earlier questions in terms of what's hot, microbiome, in
Yeah.
terms of what is it there, okay? It's not just digestive and immunity. We talked about, gut
Mood.
brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's gut skin, there's the cardiometabolic improvements that can happen when it comes to taking certain probiotics as well, or changing your microbiome in ways that allows those microbes that are naturally present in your body to come alive and do what they need to do without being stifled. So there's a lot of research that are coming there, and that's going to again drive a person's overall wellness. There's never a magical pill. I mean, I'd love there to be a magical pill, but there never is a magical pill. It's always a part of your daily regimen when it comes to what you're eating and your exercise and healthy sleep habits that are going to overall drive a change to a healthier you. Supplements are a big part of that. But I mean, if you're taking a supplement for weight management, and you work out for 6 weeks and you stop working out and you stop losing weight or it starts gaining it back, you don't throw the supplement away and say, well, that didn't work. It's got to be more than that. And I'm not sure, in the collective consumer conscious, how far we are towards that understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think the answer is education, right? And I think unfortunately with AI and social media, everyone wants an instant fix or an instant answer, and that does not work with your body. It's a daily practice. It's having that balance. It's being consistent, and there's really no quick fixes when it comes to natural health and having that longevity or health span. And that's a responsibility I think we all have to take on. But I love what you said about the gut microbiome, and I think we've only scratched the surface when it comes to microbiome. And like you said, there's skin and mouth, and all kinds of microbiomes in our bodies. And we only really focus on the gut brain axis, but there's so much more to learn there. So I would love to maybe even do another podcast with you at some point and just talk about that.
Yeah, get me
Yeah, it's
get
so
me started. We
fascinating.
could go for hours.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's fascinating stuff. Well, I'd love to know, you have all this knowledge about the nutraceutical space and about longevity and what's working and what's not. What do you do on a daily basis to keep healthy and have have the best health span?
I mean, it starts at home, honestly. It's spending time with family and the people you love, and I think that helps naturally, get you where you need to be. Eating healthy, eating right, exercising several times a week, are definitely things that are going to allow you to get there. And obviously, it takes time to create habits, not only when it comes to taking a supplement every day for 60 days or whatever, but also when it comes to healthy eating and things like that. And honestly, eating healthy is something that will allow your body to naturally change its microbiome. And so I'm sure you've heard that, when it comes to some of these diets, well, if you cut sugar out of your diet, you stop wanting it after a couple of weeks. Well, yeah, because those microbes that are in your gut that are telling you eat more sugar, because that's what they thrive on. They're not going to be there anymore. Or they're going to be at a much lower level, so you're not going to be getting those signals anymore to eat more sugar. So it all comes back in the hands of doing that healthy lifestyle and sticking with it.
Hmm.
Okay. And being and making sure you are educated. Everyone's different. at the end of the day. And the differences are not just genetic, those differences are in the microbiome as well. And so what's going to work for one person might not work for somebody else. And so it's finding something that works and then believing in it. And I think that's, one thing that I would say to those that are looking to get into this industry, the nutraceutical industry, the dietary supplement industry, the functional food industry, we're a passion industry. If you ever talk to anyone in this industry, we're very passionate about what we do. We get into it for a reason. You heard why I got into it. There's a lot of passionate people out there that might not even know about this industry. And so I would say for those of you that are, looking in the nutraceutical, or sorry, in the pharmaceutical industries, or, looking at biotech, we have a place for you over here in our industry. Okay. Your knowledge would be welcome. Your passion would be celebrated. And so there's plenty to do on this side for those who are interested in the science of things, and ability to want to make a difference, and make a difference that, that'll fundamentally change those around them. When I talk to people that I went to grad school with, and they've been working on the same molecule since we graduated with, from PhDs, with PhDs 20 years ago, they're working on the same thing and they haven't gotten it out to market yet. There's a place to be able to do that quicker, and to find that satisfaction, to be able to help those that you love and care for.
Yes. Much
I
faster.
can exactly. And I guess
Mhm.
if you talk to anybody in the industry, I would guess that they would say they're hit up at parties all the time. Hey, I have this going on. What do you expect to take from me about this? And what do you take about that? That's because they're radiating that passion and an understanding, and people are going to be drawn to that. And so as an industry itself, to become a part of that, we're here for you. Come
Yeah.
join us, please. We have a need for people that understand the science, number one, but more importantly, are able to translate that science so that people can understand it.
Yeah.
Um,
That's so beautifully said. And I think I want to echo that, and also ask companies that are in the nutraceutical space to consider people that want to transition from pharmaceuticals to nutraceuticals, because I think there's a ton of talent out there that could make a difference here. And this industry is very small, and I think there's talent out there that we can access that we may not consider, on a day-to-day basis. So I completely agree with you. I love your passion, Jeremy. Thank you for everything that you're doing for the industry, and continue to echo that, out. And thank you for all the amazing products that you're creating. If people want to connect with you, how can they do that best?
yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn obviously is a very easy way just to go in and send messages that way. I give out my email address if you're interested in in companies to make products for you. Just, I guess, a quick 30-second pitch on INW, or Innovations in Nutrition and Wellness. As you mentioned, we're a contract manufacturer. We make both dry dosage products, so think capsules, tablets, powders, as well as functional beverages. Think liquids, shots, gels, skincare, cosmeceutical products as well, and functional bars too. And so, a lot of different finished product dosage forms to be able to go with. And so my email address is just JBARTOS, so my first initial last name, at INWMFG.com. So INW manufacturing, if you will, .com. Feel free to shoot me a note. I'd love to, connect and try to, help get a product out there that you're passionate about.
Perfect. Well, thank you for your time, Jeremy. It was wonderful, and look forward to having you on again.
I'm looking forward to it as well. Appreciate your time too. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into Leading for Wellness. This podcast is powered by Leading for Wellness CEO and investor events and Colon Executive Search. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review us on your favorite social media platform. And to learn more about our services, visit leadingforwellness.com or colonsearch.com, and follow us on Instagram as well.